Hi everyone, today we're going to take a look at this Gigabyte X870E Aorus Master, and I'm very grateful to Gigabyte to have answered to my request. Thanks to you guys to have provided this loan unit for me to share with everyone. Now the first thing when you unbox, you will see the main unit, which is the motherboard. I'll talk about the details in a short while. You'll also be provided with instruction manual, a leaflet of stickers, this case badge, nice, the antenna for your Wi-Fi. Now this is rather unique. It stands this way, and at the base, right, this is magnetic, and this magnet is pretty strong. Well done. You're also provided with SATA cable, where you have one straight, one right angle. Velcro stripes for you to do your cable management. Two sensor probe, a noise sensor, and of course their famous G connector. And what this does, as you know that your case front I/O have all those cables, right? They are all in separate cables. You can just plug the connector to this G connector, where it has all the labels over here, which says power, speaker, reset, and such. So when you plug all those cables to this, right, this acts as just one connector, where you connect to the front I/O connector over here. On top of all the accessories, these are the additional, which is also included. They have provided you with a fan. These are meant for your RAMs, and an extension cable, and a bag of screws. And all these are found in this bag. Now how this fan is being plugged, making use of the screws over here, right? When you mount the motherboard to the case standoff, you can place the fan over here. As you can see, right, the fan is slanted. So having this, right, this will blow to your RAMs, which will cool down your RAMs even further. And if the fan 4-pin is not long enough, they have provided you with the extension. Nice touch. Now, the thing is that when I look at how it is this way, right, now this is gonna blow air to your RAMs. But what if there is a 360 liquid AIO at the top, which there will be if you're using liquid AIO, or even if you place the liquid AIO at the side, and at the top is for exhaust of air, where you have 3 fans at the top. Wouldn't this draw the air off, and having a hard time, right, for this little fan here to push air to the RAMs itself? Unless you're doing air cooling, whereby the top fan is not necessary to plug. For air cooling, the direction is going through this way, and leaving the open area at the top, right, you can draw air and to cool down the RAMs. And I was thinking that, what if I do it this way? Wouldn't it be better? I mean, theoretically you can, but your RAM is gonna hit the fans itself. So this is something that Gigabyte might want to have a look on it. Instead of having the fan at the top, right, fighting for the intake air from the top, if you're mounting a liquid AIO at the top, or even at the side, having the top exhaust fan, right, the little fan will have some struggle in pulling air to clean the, to sweep the RAMs over here. It only makes sense to me if you place it this way. See? But this is going to have a problem whereby the RAM will hit the fan, and another thing is the locking mechanism, which I will show you later. Now as for the dimension of this motherboard, since this is a ATX motherboard, the measurements from here to here is 305mm. From here to here is 244mm. As for the side VRM heatsink and the rear VRM heatsink, starting from the side, this is measuring 30mm from the base of the motherboard to the top, and here is at 45mm. The design and structure of this motherboard is very simple yet elegant. Starting off with the design, as you can see at the bottom over here, you have this Aorus crest, and this whole plate that you see, in fact, is the heatsink for your M.2 and for the X870 chipset. And only this section over here, whereby you have this crest, right? Okay, below this whole, I should say, plate sticker, right? It's made of aluminium, inclusive of here. It's just that the top section, this part, is with the logo, which is made of plastic. And same goes to the M.2. Whole thing is made of aluminium. And at the top, right, at this section over here, this is the plastic with the labeling. Same goes to the rear. And this is where you have the ARGB effect. Nice touch. Now, speaking about the whole structure, right, in fact, there are a lot of points that I see bonus. Starting off with all the VRM heatsink. These are very chunky. And take a look. They have took a traditional, in fact, I believe most of their motherboard is done this way, with the traditional fin stack. This will definitely dissipate lots of heat, inclusive of the side VRM. And what I like about it, in fact, there are fin stack on the VRM heatsink. Nice touch. Same goes to the M.2 of the top section. And again at the bottom, the whole section is made of aluminium. And to remove off the bottom plate, it's very straightforward. It's toolless. You don't need to have screwdrivers. All is needed is just to push this down and to pull it. See, the whole plate will lift up and you will expose the M.2 areas. And this section over here, right, where you have another piece of aluminium plate, this is to cool down the X870E chip. There are two over here. And this is the underside of the whole plate. Nice touch. Now, to place this back, right, as these are magnetic, align to this tool. See? Then once you align it, you can just press it back and this will be in place. And as for the top section M.2, at the back, push this towards the side, lift it up, and you expose the M.2 area. And you have this, a very chunky aluminium heatsink, which will dissipate or absorb tons of heat. Besides this, okay, to put it back right, you need to slot this tool over here towards the towards the guiding screws over here. So you just put it in and push it down. That's it. To illustrate how to plug the M.2 to the top slot and to the bottom slot, starting off with the top slot. Now, to remove this, as mentioned, press the lever at the back, pull from the back, and leave it up. It's quite simple. And before you plug the M.2, make sure you remove off the protective frame of the thermal pad at the top or at the bottom. Now, if you are using an M.2 that has both chipset on either side, or should I say on both sides, this is actually a double-sided chipset. Some is actually single, where you have only the chip at the top, the bottom is nothing. For this case, right, you have both on each side. Make sure you remove the protective frame of the thermal pad at the bottom and at the top. Then you plug it in. Now, there is a locking mechanism over here. This is spring-loaded. So when you insert the M.2, right, you don't have to worry about this lever over here. You can just slot it in, make sure it's in place, then press it down. And it's quite simple. Then you can place this back. Now, some of you might have this question whereby, what if my M.2 is only single-sided? Meaning to say the chip is at the top, not at the bottom. Do I need to remove out the bottom thermal pad? I advise you, yes, remove this, based on the fact that plastic is not a good absorber. So even if your bottom section is not touching the thermal pad, right, it's more advisable to remove off the plastic film. So more or less, right, the heat will not be captured within this area over here. So this is actually the top section. Now, moving on to the bottom section. Okay. Again, to remove all this plate, just this lever over here, lift this whole thing up. Again, depending on your M.2, whether is it double-sided chip or single-sided chip, I would advise remove both the bottom and the top. As mentioned to you, the plastic is not a good absorber. In fact, it will just trap heat, so it's best to actually remove off. Same thing, the locking mechanism of the bottom section is similar to the top, okay, which is spring loaded. So you just insert and you press it down. It's this simple. Now, besides this, we have the PCI-E slot where you plug your GPU. Now, only the top section here, right? This is with a release mechanism. Okay, let me just zoom in and show you. Now, as you can see over here, right? If your card, assuming this is the GPU, when you plug to the PCI-E slot, this will be in lock position. To remove this off, right, something which I truly enjoy what they have done. In fact, it makes sense. What is needed is just to press this button over here. When you press this down, right, this lever will go down. Okay, or should I say the latch? See, it will stay in place, so that you can use both hands, okay, to pull out your graphic card. And why do I say that I enjoy what I'm doing right now? Based on the fact that some of the motherboards, right, this is actually, locked in place, and you have to hold on to this while having your only one hand, right, to pull out the graphic card, which I find is very clumsy. Else for this mechanism, right, when it's in lock position, okay, this is in lock position. When you want to remove off your card, assuming this is the graphic card, you want to remove, right, press this button and this will be in place, and you can have both hands steadily holding on to the GPU and to pull it out, just to prevent any bends and such, or wear and tear on the graphic card itself. On the pins itself. Well done. As mentioned, this is an ATX motherboard. It has 8 layers of PCB, and all the copper traces you see on this board is of 2 ounce. The power phase of this board is 16 plus 2 plus 2 at 110 ampere choke. At the center, this is the 1718 socket, which support AMD processor of 7000 series, 8000 series, and 9000 series. At the bottom, you have 4 DIMM slot that only support DDR5 and has a max capacity of 256. And it does support both Expo and XMP profile with a max OC profile of 8600 MHz. There are a total of 3 PCIe slot and 4 M.2 slot. Starting off with the PCIe slot, where you have the first slot, this is controlled by the processor and is of Gen 5 backward compatible, and it has a speed of X16. Else for the middle and the last, these 2 slots are controlled by the chipset, having the middle at Gen 4 at X4 speed, and at the bottom this is Gen 3 at X4 speed. Good news is that all this PCIe slot does not share lane at all. So whatever you have populated, your GPU, your capture card, or even your sound card, all this will run according to specs and at their cater speed. As for the M.2, there are a total of 4, and it's very unique for Gigabyte to arrange it this way, and I understand why they have done so. As you can see, right, this slot over here, these are in silver. Else for this slot is in black. The silver ones are Gen 5 and is being controlled by the processor. And as for the black slot over here, the second slot is controlled by the chipset. And why did Gigabyte did this? Based on the fact that imagine that all these silver slots, right, are together with your first PCIe slot. There'll be lots of heat generating if you're running Gen 5. So that's the reason why they have split it, or should I say move away all the PCIe 5 together, or should I say Gen 5 together, to the bottom section. Though I do understand that this Gen 4 does generate heat, but not as much as Gen 5. So that's the reason why they have did it this way, in a very unique way. Now, speaking about lane sharing, right, by right, the top slot is Gen 5. Same goes to the bottom, which is Gen 5, and they are backward compatible. The speed of the top slot is X16. If you are to populate the third and fourth, this lane will become X8. So take note on this. For the onboard audio, this is making use of the Realtek ALC 1220. and it does support DTS Ultra X technology, and also 7.1 channel surround sound, high definition. Now as for the connection, starting off with this socket is meant for your front microphone and headphone jack. You'll be provided with two 3-pin 5V ARGB connector, which the orientation is rather unique. For this, right, is orientated this way. For this is the normal way. Kind of cute. Next will be a 12V RGB connector. Now, please do not get mixed up with the RGB and the ARGB. ARGB is meant for your addressable ARGB devices. Else for this, right, it's not. So make sure you are very clear what you connected to, especially on the voltage. The 3-pin over here, right, is 5V. The 4-pin over here is 12V. So you see the difference? So make sure you plug them correctly on your ARGB devices, or should I say the ARGB fans. This socket, I wouldn't know what this is. I'll just skip. The TPM module, where you can make use of. You'll be provided with a 4-pin PWM fan header, two USB 2.0 socket, a 3.0 socket, which is meant for your front I/O Type A USB port, two fan header again, which is 4-pin PWM, and this is the front I/O, where you connect the power switch, the reset switch, the power LED, and the hard disk LED to this. By the way, as I showed you earlier, right, just make use of the G Connect. You can just plug it in one section rather than having the speed cable connecting to the individual pins over here, which is rather troublesome. Now, as I angle over here, right, if you notice right above the front socket, you have this 2-pin over here. Okay, let me just zoom in. See right at the top, there's 2-pin over here, and there's 2-pin over here. Now, this 2-pin is RTS. I wouldn't know what this is for. And this 2-pin right above the front I/O headers, right, this is the clear CMOS pin. So when you short it, right, it will just bring you to the default UEFI settings. So take note on this. Now as for the front, oops, you have total of 3 4-pin PWM connector. These are right angle. This is very useful. In fact, when you plug your connector, right, it's not, you know, sitting upright. Instead, it's flat. So you can tuck your cables underneath the motherboard. A very clever touch. Another 3.0 socket, which is meant for your front Type A port. So this and this is of the same. Okay, it's just that they provide you with additional. So imagine that if your case, right, just like the O11D XL, you have two, you have two 3.0 connector where you support up to 4 USB Type A port. You can make use of both. Next, you have 4 SATA port. Now, these are right angle. Again, a very nice touch regarding about the lane sharing. There are no lane sharing at all. So if you were to populate all the M.2s, total of 4, and to populate this, right, there are no compromises at all. You'll be having total of 4 M.2 and 4 hard disks or 4 2.5-inch hard disks. So you can total of having of 8 storage port. Well done. Next, you have the Type C port for your front I/O Type C connector, where this has a transfer rate of 20 gig. Now, this is another unique touch from Giga, whereby some of you fancy to place a small LCD panel within the case itself, right? Instead of routing the cable to the back of your HDMI port, you can make use of this port. And this is running on 1080p, which is high definition. So you can just simply plug the LCD panel inside your case and to route your cables probably tucked below the motherboard and to connect over here. Nice touch. Next will be a 24-pin connector, followed by a digital debug LED where it shows you the code so that it will notify you when you boot up the system, right? If there's certain thing wrong, take for example the RAM, you will probably show a digit of 15. This you will refer to your motherboard with all the debug code. So this is very, very useful. Next, you have the power switch, whereby this it's good if you want to test your motherboard outside the case instead of mounting everything and to have the connection over here just to power up the system. So this is one of the good function that I really like if motherboard have this. Okay, next will be the reset switch. Moving to the top, you will be provided with additional 2 more 3-pin 5V ARGB connector. On this board, there are a total of 4 ARGB connector, 2 at the bottom, 2 at the top. Plenty of provisioning for your ARGB devices that you don't have to worry that it runs out. Next, you have these 2 4-pin PWM fan header, whereby this is in gray and this is in black. Now, at all times, if you're plugging in your air cooler fans or your liquid AIO radiator fans, right, make sure you connect to the gray one, where this is the master controller. Why do I say this? Well, as listed on UEFI, right, this is CPU fan, and on the black one, this is CPU op. And CPU op does not have a dedicated control, or should I say a fan curve that you can play with. So when you set anything on the CPU fan, okay, which allows you to do your fan curve, your CPU fan op will follow. And again, probably you might ask, hey Gil, I can plug it to op. All I need to do is just to control the, to set the curve on CPU fan. Yeah, that is not wrong, but without any connection to the CPU fan, right, you can't configure anything at all. So at all time, make sure that you connect your air cooler fans or your radiator fans or your liquid AIO radiator fans, right, to the gray header over here. Next, you have 2 8-pin EPS connector over here, whereby at all times I mentioned that you only need 1. It's more than enough to provide the power to your processor. And based on the normal usage of drawing your B core, right, 1 is enough. In fact, 1 header, or should I say 1 socket, right, produce 325 watts to about 360 watts, depending on how the configuration on the motherboard is, but it's around there. So if you plug 2, right, it doesn't mean that you make use of the 2 current. You will just pull 1, unless you're doing extreme overclocking, like liquid nitrogen overclocking. Yeah, you need more V core and more stability to the current, and to pump even higher, right, then connect 2. And again, people ask, what if I have to connect 2? Can I connect 2 instead of 1? Yes, you can. It's just that you will just draw on your primary socket. This is the rear I/O, and this is the Q Flash Plus button. In fact, this is the BIOS flashback button, where it allows you to update your motherboard BIOS version to the latest without having you to plug your processor or your RAMs. All is needed is just to make use of this button, just to power the motherboard with your PSU, and to download the firmware into a thumb drive with the latest firmware version, and to plug to this port where it says BIOS. Make sure you plug to this port and not others, because other ports, if you plug the thumb drive to other port, right, the BIOS flashback button will not work. So make sure it's plugged to this port where it says BIOS. And I hope that Gigabyte in future, right, will do a highlight white line, so when we look at it, we know that, oh, this is the port that we should place the thumb drive with the latest firmware to this port in order to use the Q Flash Plus or the BIOS flashback button. Right at the bottom, this is the Clear CMOS button. You're provided with a HDMI port, which is version 1.4, having the capability of 4K 60Hz. And this is making use of the integrated graphic on your processor. You're given total of 10 USB Type A port. We have black, which is version 2. The blue ones, version 3.2, generation 1, that gives you a transfer rate of 5 gig. And for the red ones, these are version 3.2, but generation 2, and has a transfer rate of 10 gig. Right at the bottom, you have 2 USB Type C port, where this is the USB 4 port. And it not only has a transfer rate of 40 gig, it also acts as a display port, whereby you may use of any portable monitor or monitor that has a Type C connector, right, for projection. You can make use of this ports over here. And if you ask, can I project 2 different monitors with these 2 ports together? Yes, you can, no problem. At the top over here, this is the RJ45 socket, where it allows you to transfer rate at 5 gig, or probably you have a 10 gig internet connection, right? You can just plug to this and you will just pull 5 gig. Over here is the Wi-Fi 7 socket, and it does support Bluetooth version 5.4, and there is a very unique way to connect the antenna to this. It has a proprietary connector. You can just connect it. See, it's pretty straightforward, and you don't need to screw it and such. And if you want to remove it, just pull it out. It's simple as that. Next, you have the line out. This is meant for your speakers, the microphone jack, and the SPDIF out. Illustration of the ARGB, and this is the underglow at the bottom section, and at the rear, a very nice Aorus logo. See, and of course you can control, and this is the overall look. Very nice. In this section, I will illustrate the RAM training cycle. For the very first time when you build out this system, which is on the AM5 platform, this is normal. Don't expect it that when you boot up the system, right, you will go to UEFI straight. It does have some RAM training timing. Now on my left, as you can see, right, a black screen. This is in fact the projection of the system. And when it reaches UEFI, right, it will show the UEFI dashboard. Now at the center where you see this stopwatch, this is whereby I click on the start button and to click this simultaneously, and it will show you the timing, how long it takes for it to cycle and to train the RAMs before you boot to UEFI. And this is only at the first start, and subsequently once it's verified, right, when you reboot or start from cold boot, it will be very fast. So right now I'm just going to show you. Here we go. During this period of time, right, as I mentioned, do not touch it. When it reflect at 15, this is correct. It verifies that your RAMs are seated properly. Then just let it run. At this period of time, do not reset the system. Do not off the system and clear CMOS. If you do that often, right, you will damage the motherboard itself. I would predict this is around 2 minutes or so before it boot up to UEFI. So as mentioned to you, do not turn off anything. Let it run. It will cycle. And take note on the debug LED over here. It will cycle too, according to the digital numbers over here. It will just cycle. So let it run. So at this period of time, right, probably you can go to, make a cup of coffee, or to, drink a cup of tea and such. And for those of you who actually migrate from Intel to AMD, right, you might have a struggle to wait for the initial start. But after that, guaranteed it will be very fast in booting. Same goes to people who done the migration from platform AM3 to AM3, AM4, right, to AM5, right. This is what you're gonna face. As you can see right now, the time is at 1 minute 18-20 seconds. So I let it run. So once the UEFI pop up, right, I'll just stop. See, it takes about 1 minute 25 seconds to load to UEFI. Once this is done, right, okay, I'm gonna reset the timer, and this is the second run. Okay, I'm just gonna press the reset button. So when I press reset, right, take a look how long it takes. So as mentioned to you, right, the second cycle will be much faster because your RAMs has been verified and such, and in no time, right, it will boot up to UEFI. I would say take probably about 20-30 seconds or so. See, it's up. In fact, it take about 20 seconds to load up to UEFI. This is how the UEFI interface looks like. There are two modes, easy mode or the advanced mode. When you click on advanced, this will bring you to this tables over here where you can go in depth to do your settings of your system. I'll first start off with easy mode. At the top, if you click on this, which is F1, or you press F1, it will show you all the legend or what the general help is and what is it for, as in like the function. take for example, as I mentioned to you, easy mode and advanced mode. Instead of clicking on it, you can press F2. Let me just show you. See? And you press F2 again, you'll be back to easy mode. Next will be languages. This I don't have to explain. If you want to see all the description in Mandarin, right, you can just click on Mandarin. Okay, I'll just set it to English first. Now, next will be load default, whereby let's say you've done all the settings over here and you want to revert back to the default settings. You can just click on this or press F7. Save and exit, I don't have to mention, self-explain. For favorites, okay, now for favorites, when you click on this, right, these are the things based on the fact that you often use. Okay, take for example, let's say on Twitter itself, let's say you often use this X3D mode. You can press insert key. As you press it, right, there is a star beside the description. See, let me just show you again. See, so when the star is littered up, okay, when you go to favorite, see, it's littered up. The X3D turbo. Okay, I repeat that again. Take note. Take for example, I will do the DDR5 auto boost. Okay, take a look at this, starting with no star, and look at the favorite menu. There's nothing over here, right? So if I were to press insert, it has a star beside the auto, and when you go to favorites, right, see, it populates over here. So this is how you use the favorite function. Just a one-stop menu where you often use all the functions, so that this will save time. Now, back to easy mode. For search button, when you click on it, you know there's a function on it, and it's not in your favorite. Take for example, you want to toggle the fan. You can just type fan and search for it. So when you search on it, right, see, the function will pop up, and you can toggle it inside this search option. So this is what you meant. Right now, at this section over here, these are all the status. Okay, inclusive the CPU fan. Starting off my left, it shows you the motherboard, the processor that you're using, the RAMs that you populated, and the version of the ARGB. If you update the BIOS, right, it has a better version, right, it will list over here. At this section, it will show you the CPU clock frequency, the CPU temperature, the voltage, and right over here is the memory frequency and the motherboard temperature. In fact, system temp is the motherboard temperature. Now, if you notice, right, my memory frequency right now is 4800, which by right, when I enable Expo profile, right, this will be 6000, but I have not enabled it, so that's why it's showing default. At the bottom over here, where you see CPU fan and CPU fan op. Now, take note, if you have more fans populated, right, as in like plug into those fan headers, right, it will show more over here. So take note on this. It happened that this, I'm just running off a air cooler, and the air cooler fan, right, is reflecting over here. And of course, at the bottom, if you want to set the fan curve manually, as you can see, all these are the headers. Right now I only have CPU fan. You can just toggle the lines over here to do your fan curve and to have more control over here. And of course, you can set the profile that you wanted. Okay, if you don't want to do the custom curve, you can use this. So this is what it's all about. Then over at this section, right, where it says X3D turbo mode, well, when you trigger this, right, this is a function whereby it will boost your processor, but there are certain functions that will not work. Okay, let me just show you over here under this. As you can see, right, if you were to toggle this, right, see, limitation, it will tell you what are the limitations. Okay, now right at the bottom you have boot sequence. I have purposely generated two USB thumb drive. I have not populated any M.2. So assuming that these two thumb drive, right, starting off with the first one which says Viber Team, this is, let's say, with Windows OS, and the second one which says vendor CEO product, let's say this is Linux. Then if you want to boot your system in Linux mode, you have to set this boot priority up way above the Windows. And how you do that? click on the boot sequence where it shows you the two drives. What you need to do, right, you want to load Linux first. Just pull this vendor CO product up above Bible Team. See, this indicate when you save the profile, right, when you boot, right, it's telling the system that, hey, I want to boot to Linux instead of Windows. And if you want to go back again, come back to this interface, or should I say this function, pull the Windows up. Okay, this is what it's all about. Now, at this section over here, it tells you what are the RAMs being populated on the on the RAM slot, which is A2 and B2. And right below it, you can set the turbo boost if you want to, or set it to auto, and to set your XMP profile or XMP profile. Yeah, that's right. This board is catered for 2 profile. If you're using an XMP RAMs, right, you can set to XMP mode. If you're using Expo, you'll be able to set Expo profile. Now, it happened that this RAM of mine that I'm using, which are the King Bang Dark heatsink, right, they have dual profile. When I click on this, right, see, it gives me 2 options. But I know that I'm running on a AMD platform, so make sure, okay, be it whether you have dual profile, right, if you're running on AMD, right, make sure you set an Expo profile. Okay, once you have set that, right, there are more options that you can play with, whereby you can set the Expo at higher bandwidth, if it's able to, okay, you can toggle. Or having a low latency support, you can toggle too. These are the things that you can set. Followed by this section. Now, in the event if you want to upgrade your BIOS version and you don't want to use the BIOS spec, you can download the firmware on your thumb drive, plug on any of the type A USB port, come to this interface, click on Q Flash, and it will show you this. Okay, then you can click on this. Okay, assuming that you know the thumb drive have the firmware, right, you can click on it and to update. Next will be the resizable bar support. Now, this is always an enable. Just leave it enable. This is meant for your graphic card. Okay, try not to disable it. In fact, nobody will disable it. Next will be CSM support. This you can disable. Leave it disabled because at this current situation, right, I don't think any one of us is using legacy devices, so just disable this. Followed by SPD, or should I say the RAM info. When you click on this, right, it will tell you that the RAMs that is populated, do they have profile? Take for example A2 and B2, which is populated. When I click here, right, see, it will show you all the information that what it has, like the Expo profile or the XMP profile and such. See, these are the timing and such. Same goes to the B2 slot. If you didn't populate any RAMs, right, on the RAM slot, see, it's empty. Okay, so this is just a quick glance of information of what RAMs you have populated in the system. Now, right below the RAM information, you have this preferred operating mode, whereby right now it's auto. So every time when you go to UEFI, right, you will come to easy mode. If you want to have it load default advanced mode, you can do this, set to advanced mode. Okay, as for fast boot, you can enable this just to have fast boot, but for me, I'll just disable this and let it be. Followed by the SPD setup. This is for your RAM settings, where you can manually set the configuration and to make use of your own settings. And you can save it or to load the profile. Or you can clear it if you don't want it. Whatever settings you've done, right, you can clear it. Or you can select the profile over here. Okay, and to set it. Now, besides this, right, below here you have the multi-theme. This is the default Aorus theme. You can change to all this theme, but it will not be instant. It only changes the theme when you reboot. When you save the profile and to reboot back to UEFI. So take note on this. Then over here, right, where it says 80 port display mode. Now, this is the debug LED, digital LED that you see on the motherboard itself. if you do not want it to always show the debug code, right, as in like after, you know that when you boot up, you will go through it will show you the debug code numbers and such. When you boot up to Windows, right, you can set this to show your CPU temperature, your motherboard, your chipset temperature, your motherboard temperature, and such, or disable it. It will just off the whole debug when you boot up. Okay, so right now I'm just going to set to CPU temp. Done. Now, coming to the advanced mode, these are more stuff to play with. Things like under tweaker, right? You see all these settings over here? I'm not going to go in depth. You can do all the settings that you want. Now, often play with from, end users and such, right? I will make use of the precision boost overdrive enhancement, where this will list down all this. Now, what do we mean by 90, 80 and such? Meaning to say you are setting the system to run at that temperature. Let's say you allow it to have 90 degree Celsius of the temperature. You can go by levels, so you got to play with this and see which one suit you best and the performance and such. Or you don't want it to go above 80 degrees Celsius. Again, you have 5 levels. So these are the things that you can play with. Next will be econ mode. Self-explain. If you want to run at lower TDP, right, you can click on this and to either enable, to set it to a limit of 105 watt. In fact, the processor that I'm using, right, can go up to 170 watt. So we can pump it down to 105 watt without hurting the there will be a slight performance drop, but not so drastic. Or you can disable it. Then other things that I play with, right? Okay, the XMP profile as mentioned to you. Oops. And the bandwidth that you can enable or disable. Then for this section here, right, the uClock DIF 1 mode. This is mainly for gamers, whereby you want more FPS performance and such. By default, it's auto. Okay, you want to make sure that it runs at 1:1 ratio, right? You can just set it to game mode 1. Okay, and I got information from a viewer. Thank you very much for educating me on this. Do not select 2. This will be very unstable, and it's not running on ratio of 1:1. Okay, so you will want to make use of this instead of this. So take note on this. Now, besides this, I do play with the CPU vcall. I like to do offset. So normally I'll set it to normal. Then under the dynamic vcall, right, I will set it to minus 0.05 volt, which is this. Okay, as a start. Of course, you can try and error, up to you. But for me, standard will be 0.05 volt. And besides this, right, the rest I won't touch. Unless it's not very stable, then I will go down to select the CPU or VRM settings, whereby I set the CPU vcall load line calibration. Okay, you can set to extreme, which is drawing a lot of current, etc. and etc. But most of the time, I'll just leave it as medium. Okay, give some slack, not to the extreme and not to the lowest. You wouldn't want it to be the lowest based on the fact that your processor does need the current to run in a consistency. If you set it too low, right, you're gonna face crashes and such. So I would advise set it to medium. Alright. Now, besides these settings, these are the things that you will see. Just to show you. Okay, this is the platform power. Then the IO port. You can set whether to. Okay, now speaking of which, right, if those devices that I don't use, right, I will disable them. Take for example the onboard audio. Because I'm using a audio interface, I will just disable this. Same goes to other stuff that I don't need, I will just disable. Now, reason for this, right, it will allow your system to boot faster and such. And these are the rest of the stuff that you can set. I'm not going to go in depth on this. Then miscellaneous, you have all this. the generation that you can set on your lanes and such. Okay, not going to go in depth, so just to show you what you can do. Then besides this I seldom touch, but a lot will configure this based on the fact, I think it's this if I'm not wrong. No, not this. I know some of you guys will use this to set the, this one, to set the graphic configuration, whereby you don't want this to be auto, you want it discrete, you just disable. Some of you do that, but for me, I just leave it, because in the event if your discrete graphic card, right, is not functioning properly, right, at least when you plug the HDMI cable to your onboard HDMI port, if this is set to disable, right, you can't project. So that's the reason why I leave it auto. But some have argued that, you know, by doing this, right, disabling it, right, you will make the system go faster, more FPS and such, which I don't think so. Okay, now AMD overclocking. If you are more towards like very challenging on playing on the PVO2 and PVO3 and such, right, you can go to AMD overclocking. Just accept. Then this is the section where you will play with the precision boost overdrive. Okay, when you do this, right, you have certain function. Is either you, most of the time we will set to an advanced based on the fact that we can set the PPO limits. So for this, right, either you pull to the motherboard. Okay, just a trick. If you want to make use of PVO2 and to find out whether your processor is functioning good and such, right, you can do this. Set this PPO limits to motherboard. Then the rest, right, I have seen that people done scalar, okay, to ×10. You are in fact killing the processor. So I wouldn't advise you to do so. Just leave it as auto. Okay. So two things that you need to do in order to, you know, fine tune your processor to push higher performance, but yet dropping the temperature. First thing, on the PVO limit set to motherboard. Next thing is the curve optimizer. Enable this, all core. Then set this, make sure this is negative sign, okay? Then you can just, you know, play with the figures. Start from 30. If it crashes, then do 20. If it crashes again, probably do 10. Things like that. Or you can go, or you can go 30 first. If it doesn't work, do 25. Do 25 and such until it's stable. Okay, right now I'm just going to set it 30. So these are the basic things that you can play with just to improve the system performance and to lower down the temperature. And if you are into more challenging, right, okay, you can don't use this. Instead, make use of the curve shaper. This is known as the PBO3. Kindly do your own research how to do it based on the fact that there are more anchor points to play with. See, you have 3 frequency on the minimum, the low frequency, the mid frequency, the high frequency, and the max frequency. Okay, this I am not going to go in depth, but do your research. This is a more in-depth fine-tune where you can pull more performance and to lower even further on your temperature reading on your processor. So these are the things that I will play with. Okay, besides this, PC health, I guess this is normal. What's this? Oh, okay, case intrusion. Anyway, just to show you what this is, showing you all the voltages and such. Then next, under system info. Okay, this is as usual, showing you the stats of your processor, your motherboard, your RAMs and such. And of course, you can... Oh, speaking of which, right, to set... Where's system info? Now, if you want to set the time and date, right, you can't do it over here. You have to click on this. See? Same goes to when you're in easy mode. To set the time and date, you have to click on here. Alright. Then other than that, nothing much over here. Come to boot. As mentioned to you, boot priority. Then you can set secure option, whether you want to set it up and such, etc. I'm not going to go in depth. Administrative password, whereby let's say you have done all your settings, you don't want your siblings is sharing the com with you, you don't want them to know your settings and you don't want them to touch your settings, you can set an administrator password. So every time when they want to come to UEFI, right, they have to key in the password. And if you do allow them but don't, you know, mix up with your profile, right, you can set a user password so they can also enter using their own password to the UEFI. Okay. Then other than that, okay, secure boot. Now this is something which you will need to take note. If you are playing Valorant, you will need to come over here to set the secure boot to custom. If not, you can't play the game. And do take note, once you have done this setting, right, and in the event if you want to reboot your, refresh your Windows, right, for example, to, you know, reformat and to reinstall a fresh copy of Windows, right, make sure you come back over here and to set this to standard before you refresh a fresh installation on your M.2, okay, or your SSD. Make sure you set it to standard. Okay. Other than that, save and exit, these are self-explained. I wouldn't have to go through this. My thoughts about the Gigabyte X870E Aorus Master. They are good and bad. Let's start off with the good point. The structure of the board. It's very sturdy. And I like the fact how they designed the locking mechanism as such. Starting off with the RAM slot, where you can see the latch are released on both sides. I enjoy using this kind of DIMM slot, whereby when you hold on the RAMs, right, you just pull off from both directions instead of having one side. If you have one side, right, you got to pull one side first, then you will pull the other side, which sometimes might hurt the pins at this section. There will be wear and tear. So if you often do it, right, with this motion, it's like leaving up one side and leaving up to the other, right, so the pins might suffer and at times, right, with bad contact. So having both sides unlocked, you can firmly hold on to the RAM itself and to pull out straight. So this will prevent wear and tear. Nicely done. And also a very thoughtful or mindful way of how Gigabyte have strengthened the DIMM slot. As you can see here, right, there are two silver linings over here. These are in fact metal reinforcement, and this is often populated by users which make use of dual channel RAMs. In fact, majority of us is using dual channel RAMs, so they have prioritized to strengthen the two slots that we often use. Nice touch. Next will be the locking mechanism and the strengthening of the PCI-E slot for you to slot your GPU. Now, this is being strengthened. Nice touch. And I love the way how they think on the locking mechanism. In fact, this is the olden days whereby when you plug the card in, right, this will lock in place. And for us to read, right, we have to press this. For some of the motherboards, modernly right now, they have designed, right, not say that they are no good, but I find that this is more practical, whereby when you slot in, this is in lock position, okay, and to release it, right, just press this latch or button. You just need to press it once and you don't have to hold on it, and this is remain unlocked. So when you remove your graphic card, right, you have both hands holding on to the graphic card and to pull it out. So this will prevent wear and tear on the pins underneath your graphic card, which is good. Now besides this, again, toolless design, I love it so much. All this locking mechanism on the M.2s, right, is pretty straightforward. You just clip and clip it on and to lock, that's it. Or to release the latch. Nicely done. And best part, the whole M.2 shield, or should I say the heatsink, this is being fastened by this alignment of magnets, which you align it. Okay, once that's done, right, you can just pop to this clip. You don't need screwdrivers and such. Very straightforward. Same goes to the top. You just need to align these two and to pop it back. And the cooling solution of this motherboard, well, as I look through, right, fantastic. Why do I say so? Looking at the rear, I mentioned that they're making use of the traditional pin stack, where imagine that your air is going through here, right? You will just flow through this pin stack, you know, dissipating more heat. And I find out that at the rear, fantastic, there are ventilator holes. So the motion is, besides dissipating heat to the top and having the top exhaust air, right, to suck all the warm air out, this is also an additional bonus whereby you will just flow your air through this fin stack, no blockage, no nothing, and you will go to the back. Well designed. And also to the fact that I like how they designed the 4-pin PWM at the front. I wish that all this 4-pin PWM, right, are all right angle. Reason being, right, when you plug your fans, right, instead of sticking out of the board, you can just tuck them nicely underneath the board and to route your cables. That will be even better. And also another fact whereby they have included this fan over here. Now it's a very nice innovation to have this where you cool off the RAMs, but my only concern is that if you place it over here, right, the intake is from the back. Okay, it draws the air from the back in order to cool your RAMs. But the thing is, this is the top section where you have either the exhaust fan or the liquid AIO. Now if you place the liquid AIO at the top, yes, it will draw and fight the air that this guy, right, is trying to draw air in. But the top, since the radiator fans are so big, it might just, you know, minimize the pull of this fan. So this one might not be so effective to cool the RAMs over here, unless you place it over here. But as mentioned, right, there are obstacles. The RAMs might hit this and also blocking your GPU release latch. So something which Gigabyte might want to redesign this. This is in fact very useful. It's just that probably I would say, you know, set it a angle further away, but yet you still can mount to the motherboard stand. See, this will be good because you allow air to draw in from the back and to dissipate heat through here. I mean, to sweep off the heat from here and to exhaust from the top. This flow makes sense, not this way. Unless you're doing air cooling, whereby you don't mount the top fans is open, whereby this will draw air and to cool your VRM and to push to the back. As air cooler, right, is often drawn from the front and pushed to the back. So this is one minor flaw. And besides this, now the design of the board, I like it very much. It's not over complicating things and such, where you have this very nice ARGB logo here that has aura. You can control the ARGB effect, by the way, by making use of the motherboard utility. And the underglow here, nicely done, not overdose. But the thing is that with all this design over here, right, okay, this is where the problem comes. You can see tons of fingerprint. Well, this is minor setback. Probably I would say that Gigabyte supply, you know, microfiber cloth to clean the surface area. Okay, this is just my take. Other than that, I have nothing much to talk about. These are only the some minor flaws. And oh, one more thing is that bonus point, all this PCI-E slot, right? Thank goodness they are running on full specs. No lane sharing. The only problem is your third and fourth M.2 slot, which is causing the lane at the top slot to cut down to X8 instead of X16. So this is one of the downside, but not really that major. Other than that, there's nothing much to talk bad about this board. and it's booting up very fast. As you can see that the RAM timing, right, it doesn't go beyond 2 minutes. Well done. And it's pretty fast, and you can program this digital LED to read temperature as I show you on UEFI. Nicely done. Alright, with this said, I'd like to thank Gigabyte to have provided this port for me to share with everyone. And for those of you who are actually new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.